Hey yeah folks, this is Shandron here, and today we're gonna be taking a look at a build I call Dark Nature Angels. We're going to be utilizing a combo some of you may know, where we take advantage of the Angel transformation ability to ignore control loss in order to counteract the berserk from Awakened Instincts. This will allow us to pull off some quite amazing combat achievements like turn 2 wins against tier 3 to 5 stacks, the routing doomstacks and first round of engagement and the like. This combo is quite well known, and what I will be doing here is giving my bit at the best build to surround it with in order to be as powerful as possible at all stages of the game. After all, we do want to be able to take on the world on brutal, clearing nodes, wonders and magic materials from the get-go. Let's get into it. The build setup itself goes like this. For form traits, we are going for orcoids for the theme, sneaky as our mind trait for the extra flanking damage. We're going to be building around flanking. We are choosing unicorn mounts in order to get to an organical flanking position with our knights. Riding up to them and facing into the back line is very powerful. In order to unlock extra cavalry units, both from our culture and from some of our tomes. The extra 5 hit points is great as well. And obviously unicorns are fun for orcs. For culture, we are going with dark. This is to get access to 2 of their units, the Pursuers, tier 1 archers that have the optional mounted trait and proc weakened when they shoot, that are going to carry us through the early game. If you've never played with mounted archers before, you're in for a treat, especially since the phasing ability of the unicorns also allows them to escape. And the tier 3 Dark Knights that have a Dark Search ability that is a very nice AoE ability that we will abuse later on. We also get some other nice stuff with them, called the Weak, plus 20% damage against weakened units, and we also gain regeneration, which is going to be a little less relevant for us here. Dark is great overall, with not caring about city stability, and the unique city structures can add up quite a lot when you're going for domination victory, due to all the heroes that are going to stack up in your prison and crypts. For society traits, we're going with Prolific Swarmers and Ritual Cannibals. We could also have chosen Scions of Evil. This is comparable, but it gives Shadow instead of Chaos, and I believe that the extra point of Chaos Affinity from the beginning is going to help us more. Prolific Swarmers means that we grow faster due to the reduced food requirement for gaining a new population. We also start with an extra tier 1 unit. Hopefully it's going to be a Pursuer. You are going to be loving those units after you've played with this. And non-magic origin units require minus 20% unit upkeep. This means that we will hit the unit upkeep reduction cap of 50% once we have access to Faithful and Inspiring Hero. And for our tier 1 units that are not going to be in a stack, we will also hit the cap due to Impressment from Chaos, this bonus and Faithful. And for our animals, we will hit the cap just from them being animals, giving minus 25%. Our Wild Speak is giving minus 20%. And if you want the last 5%, we can get that from the Shadow Affinity tree. Ritual Cannibals also helps us grow faster from the food. This stacks up quite a lot. The mana is great. And the corpse eating ability is one of the actual in-combat bonuses you can get from these society traits. I'm not saying that in-combat bonuses are stronger than out-of-combat bonuses, but we do really like the corpse eating, especially for the early game. The negative alignment doesn't matter. We want to be evil aligned here. We want to be pillaging, and we are also going to get access to a little amount of payoffs. For tomes, we are taking Tome of the Beast, starting out with Marker's Prey, which allows units to become distracted and also adds 300 defense. Distracted means they are automatically flanked. Comboed with Pack Leader and Sneaky, we are at a total of plus 75% damage when flanking. Also extra 10 critical hit chance. This is great. This means that just drop Marker as Prey on any unit and you will almost double your damage against them. This is how we're going to be doing in the early game. We're going to be casting this spell a lot. Animal Kinship is great, plus 10% damage and plus 10% critical hit chance for our friendly animal or cavalry units. This is going to be 98% of all of our units. Summon Wild Animal is probably, if it is available, the first spell that you should take. Diversifying your army cost and upkeep in the early game is so important for ballooning fast. There's also a small chance of tier 2 animals, which is just great. All of the Wilds, strong buff for later. Once you have large armies, this is going to be just buff everything, plus 2 bolster defense, plus 1 strengthen for 15 mana if you don't have anything else relevant to spend your mana on in that given turn. And lastly, the Wild Speakers, optional mounted unit. We are going to be riding unicorns on these, and all of their relevant abilities are 1-pip abilities, so you can get to basically anywhere you want to go. 6 movement and 4 facing means that you have 10 hexes of movement to either go to somewhere to conjure animal or unleash the beast that you want to get killing the momentum. This is going to be relevant later once we pick up stronger animals. And also, I guess, poison blast something from a flanking position is kind of okay once in a while. Wildlife Sanctuary is a decent draft boost, especially if you happen to start near a lot of forest. This can easily be plus 30 draft and plus 10 food from a province improvement, which is very strong. The nature affinity is good, as nature is both what we really need and also is a quite strong affinity just overall. For ruler origin, we are choosing Wizard King. We want the world map casting in order to summon in animals and the combat casting points for later, especially. The overchannel ability is going to allow us to kick our Wombo combo into overdrive by allowing us 3 turns in a row, and extra mana is fine. For ruler weaponry, I would suggest going with the Guardian Sword and Shield. This is often my suggestion, but it's even more powerful here. We get the hero mounted trait. We get a hero that is a shield unit. We do not have access to any of those that we want to be using. We gain a support ability in Vigor that allows us to get to spur to action faster. The other option you could take here instead is the Druid Staff. This doesn't start off with a lot of what we want. We still get a support ability in Sap Strength. Sap Strength is nice in that it procs weakened. I found that I wasn't using this as much as I thought I would. But there's a fun bug with the Druid Staff at the moment, that is, you choose this, you also get the abilities of the champion on top of the abilities of the Wizard King. You don't get the plus 10% mana in combat, but you still get world map casting, combat casting points, and the overchannel ability. And on top of that, you gain all cities have plus 10% gold income, plus 20 city stability, and start with 100 relation with 3 cities. I do not know if you gain the extra experience on the non-hero units, but I would actually presume that you do. Our starting tome, as we've already discussed, is the Tome of Beasts. The next tome we are going to pick up is Tome of Pyromancy. We do this to get access to Searing Blade for our knights and animals, Fire Arrows for our archers, and to a lesser extent, summon lesser magma spirits, which later on in the game can serve as a summonable siege engine in order to break the sieging point, breakpoint, so that we can cut a little turn off here and there in our sieging. Picking up the extra plus 2 chaos affinity here is also great, as it allows us to get to stuff we really like faster. Rest of the stuff is fine, not that interesting, and Ritual Pyre is a decent way to gain mana in the early game, depending on if you're building a lot of foresters. You will notice Tome of Seal here. I'll get into this one later. For now, our third tome, Tome of Artificing, is great. We get the Empirium affinity that will allow us to start down the affinity tree towards military engineering. We get Artisan Armaments for plus 30% critical hit chance. We want the critical hit both for its damage effect, but also for its morale effect. When you crit a unit, it takes 5 morale damage. We get Siege Magic, which is what allows our Wild Speakers and our Summon Lesser Magma Spirits to turn into siege engines with Siege Breaker here. It also deals a bit more damage, but that's not that relevant. Construct Bolt Repeaters is quite a nice pickup as well, in that it is a decent sieging project. 160 gold for 4 points of fortification breaking, or whatever it's the actual name for that. Golden Mine can also be a decent special province improvement. Some gold and quite a chunk of production can be really great in your first city especially. For our fourth, we are going to pick up the Tome of the Doom Heralds. We get access to Joy Siphoners to steal morale from enemy units. With flanking, critical hitting, and this Joy Siphoners, we are dealing quite a lot of morale damage per hit, and we can often break armies by simply routing them once half of them are dead. Until we get to that point, we also can bring the enemies low and deal plus 30% more damage once in a while. I don't usually go for that much of a Summon Banshee, but it is an option. It both counts as a siege engine with the trait from before, and Wail of the Banshee allows both proccing weakened and lowering morale for units. Prelude of Doom, it is worth mentioning, this is not 2 demoralized, it's only 1, so this is a shitty spell, quite honestly. Doom Depth Trench is a strong province improvement. We do not care about the city stability as most other builds will. The mana and knowledge stack up a lot, and we are going for evil here, partly because we want to be raiding, and partly because this bonus is quite nice, so this is a good payoff for that. For Tier 3, we start off with the Tome of Vigor. Empowered Beasts is hopefully our first pickup. This makes our animals quite a lot stronger, both the ones we have from Tier 1, the ones we get for free later from the Empire tree, and the Summon Great Animals we're getting from here. Totem of the Wild is a strong spell. It allows some fun stuff if your scouts or single units or stuff gets caught out of position by a little group. You can more or less solo it with this spell because it summons in units for you to fight with. It has been nerfed severely, going from 5 units to 2 units. I think it was supposed to be 3, but it is only 2 units to this summon. It's still worth it. Summon Great Cannibal is going to be our upgrade to the summon we had from before. We will still be using that at some points. These tier 3 and tier 4 units are quite a lot stronger than the tier 1 and tier 2 that we had access to so far. Especially if you manage to get unicorns from this. Those are amazing with this build. Super growth is really nice for our knights, less so for our archers. Being caught out of position in the back line, or well, in their position as supposed to be, the retaliation attack and also opportunity attack, I believe this also gives extra opportunity attack, is really good. Extra hit points, always great. Animal Handler for resistance, we like that. And the Seed of Nature provides 1 extra pip of affinity. I'm going to explain how we make the affinity work in a second here. Before that, our second tier 3 tome is the Tome of Sanctuary, and this is the first order pickup we're going to have, even though we are gunning for a tier 4 order tome. So we get access to Keeper's Mark, which is straight up amazing. Your animals now don't die, meaning they will last an entirely extra round as a frontliner if they need to do that, or they won't die in the combat more likely as well. Anointed People is a fine buff. Status resistance and a bit of spirit resistance is always nice. Sanctuary here is a good pickup, and the Seed of Order is our 3rd pip of order affinity. Salvation can be a decent heal. I don't care about much else here, to be honest. For tier 4, and now we need to talk a bit about the affinity, how we make it work. We are missing 1 pip of nature. We have 2 from Tome of Beast and 3 from Tome of Vigor with the Seed. And we're going to get that simply by speccing our ruler into 1 signature nature ability. There are quite some decent ones, especially if you can get access to summon animal. It works perfectly with that build. For the affinity for order, it's going to be a bit more complicated. We can either pick up the Tome of Seal. If you don't like taking 3, you can just take this in the beginning instead of Tome of Pyromancy. I would not suggest doing that, as Pyromancy is quite a bit stronger at that point. But you can take it here instead, Tome of Seal, before you go on to the tier 4, Tome of Exaltation. You will still need to take 1 signature ability on your ruler, of course, to get to 6. Another thing you can do is either be lucky and get an order affinity hero, or you can spec your hero into 3 order abilities for his first 3 signature abilities. And then after that, you can respec it and go for Tome of Nature's Wrath as your 2nd book. That should allow you both Tome of Nature's Wrath and then going on to Tome of Goddess of Natures, which we want later. The reasons we are picking these books exactly are to get access to the 1 bow combo. And the reason we are taking Tome of Seal is the Legion of Seal, and that's basically it. It's better than the other tier 1 Seal book, and they are quite cheap. So, Tome of Exaltation, we want Angel Eyes to set up our combo here. Celestial gives control loss immunity, which means that we can use spells that give berserk without having the adverse effect that we cannot control our units. Flying is also a very nice buff for overland movement. Ascended Warriors can be great in that it allows us to turn our mana casting points into experience for our units, especially the greater animals and knights. The Ruler's statue can be the decent chunk of Empirium, so you're happy for this pickup as well. The other book, Tome of Nature's Wrath, is to get access to Awaken Instinct. This is how we set up the wombo combo. Heal plus 15 temporary hit points combined with the Root of Nature, giving extra temporary hit points and nature buffs and healing spells. This is 25 hit points. Regain all action points and become Berserk for 2 turns. The Berserk gets annulled by the Angel ability. Do note that the Angel ability only works in our racial units, so it does not work for animals and stuff we have picked up from elsewhere that will go Berserk. Plan around this. When you've done this, you can use Overchannel on your ruler, and you can do it again, so you get 3 turns in a row. You can wipe out stacks of tier 5 units with 1 stack of your knights by turn 2, but just using this, it's a lot of mana, of course, so I wouldn't suggest you do that, but it is an option. It's also just stupidly powerful at this point. The Root of Nature is going to be very strong for us as well, since a lot of the spells we're actually casting are nature spells. Awaken the Forest is another nice pickup here. Army in a Box is always a great pickup, to be honest. I like having the access to it, even if it's not something I will be throwing around willy-nilly, I think it's called. Tome of the Goddess of Nature in the end here. Force of Nature. Yeah, now we are cooking with gas. Plus 20% critical hit chance, plus 4 flat blight damage on your base attacks. Flat damage is really good for your knights. It's also great on your archers. This works on animals, plants, and notably cavalry, so everything in your army. Apparently, the force of nature is a little bugged as well, or maybe it's just worded incorrectly, and these +4 blight damage do not only add to base damage, but also to our dark surge damage, which means that this is even more amazing. The other spells here are good as well, Mass Rejuvenation especially. It will only bring your friendly animals and plants back to life, since you have chosen the Angel. Major transformation, your units are not all plants, so it only works on the animals you are bringing though. But the 40 temporary hit points, 50 with Root of Nature, still works for everything. So heal everything 50 is what this reads, and res up your animals if they've died, which they do because they're frontliners. Less relevant because you already have Keeper's Mark. That means that they don't die as much. This should be your progression through the tomes. If you want my suggestions for what to go and pick up after this, I would start by taking the Tome of Revelry. And the reason I did that was that I almost picked it up earlier to get access to blood fuel weapons, a flat damage buff, and extra morale, and Reveler's Heart, which means you faster proc your high morale just from a few kills. Reveler's Triumphs is a good buff, but the extra critical hit damage sort of drowns out in the vast stacking of damage we're already doing. After this, drop down to tier 1, pick up all of the flat damage buffs you can find, poison blades, poison arrows from this tome, frost blades, frost arrows, and if you didn't take the Tome of Seal before, take it now for Legion of Seal. Seeker arrows and Sundering Blades are also quite nice, even if they are not as relevant for this build. For the Empirium tree, we are going quite rainbowy here, and we will be starting slowly out of nature, chaos, and shadow. For shadow, the first relevant talent is knowledge extraction. 150 knowledge per hero defeated in combat adds up to a lot, and we want this as early as possible. Shadow binding can be okay. We already have 45% reduction on our animals from low maintenance from the animal itself, and the 20% from wild speakers, so less relevant for our units. Some of them might be outside of wild speaker stacks and could thus benefit from this. The last one here I find relevant is stolen power. Mana and knowledge when we complete a conquest of a city is nice, as we will be conquering a lot of cities. For Chaos, the first relevant talent is Impressment. This adds up with Faithful and Prolific Swarmers to 50% upkeep reduction, which is the cap for our tier 1 units, Pursuers specifically. The next one, Battlefield Looting, is also something I would like to get. Extra gold when killing stuff. We are going to be killing a lot of stuff. Lure of the Horde can be okay, but most of the tier 1 and 2 units that it spawns are not something we are actively interested in. Skilled Raiders is also a great pickup here. The -1 turn when pillaging is really quite nice, as it means that you don't have to take an entire turn off, and you only spend whatever you had left of your movement on the first turn there. For nature, there are quite a lot of good talents for us. Fruitful Integration can be good in the beginning, but be careful that it is bugged and does not work well with work camps. I've tried losing the -2 turns from it as well. Soil Tenders, more food from our farms means we get to size 10 faster. Natural recovery. Extra healing in our own territory is great, as we will mostly want to be healing in our outposts anyways. Later down the line, we get stuff like Wild Expansion. Completing a province annexation summons an animal unit under your control, depending on the province. If you're lucky, this can grant you unicorns, and unicorns are amazing in this build. It's worth mentioning that the Rite of the Guardian Spirit might be worth a consideration here, as Guardian Spirit that it has buffs all of our animals, and not only the ones in its stack, but anything in the combat that it's in. Resurgence is obviously great as well. For Materium, once we get access to that with the Tome of Artificing, we are heading straight for Military Engineering. Outpost costs -25% gold, take 1 less turn to build, and start with the work camp. This means 4 less turns and 112 less gold to build an outpost with a work camp. The 4 less turns is amazing in that it allows you to annex a wonder 4 turns earlier, and that adds up to quite a lot of income. The next one here is Master Masons, which is also great. City structures cost -20% less gold to build. We do want this. And Arcane Artisans for our mines granting +10 mana is great, as we do have a couple of special province improvements that are mines. There are some other good ones down here, but we probably won't be getting too far down this Materium line. For Order Affinity, there are a few interesting pickups as well. Tributaries, our vassals grant us +10 gold each, and we do get quite a lot of vassals with all the conquering. Career Soldiers, our knights gain faster experience. And Benevolent Conquerors is nice. +1 allegiance level when we first vassalize them mean we get more income from them, and we're not that good at making friends, so this saves us quite a bit of turns. The extra turn in converting them is also nice. For the Astral branch, we are not supposed to get any Astral affinity, but if you do pick up some, I would look at stuff like adaptive research for the cost reduction on our buildings, and maybe Astral inspiration, just to cut a little down on the knowledge for research. So thank you for joining me if you have been. I've been Chandran and you've been awesome. I hope that you've enjoyed this Dark Nature Angels builds. Do not forget to do the YouTube stuff, and bye-bye. If you're still around, let me ask you, are you pumped for the Baldur's Gate 3 release? Because I certainly am.